Something came across as I was talking with my wife just last night. She brought up a really good scripture out of Hosea, and I want to talk about it for a little bit because, as you know, I live in the United States. I know some of you live in other countries, and you can probably use this for your own country as well. I'm actually going to go to chapter 4 of Hosea. This is God's case against Israel. And it reminded me of what's going on right now in the United States. And as you might know, I'm sure it's on every world news station out there. We're leading up to our election, as we have our elections every 4 years. For the United States, it is something that can change the rest of the world. And that's something that is concerning. And I see so many people around me and around our country. I'm more concerned about everyone's inability to think on their own. And I would probably say in my very early 20s when I began to at least pay attention to what's going on in politics, and knowing that politicians can change what's in my wallet. But no one else seems to think the same thing. They think that the government in some way needs to take care of them and that they need to deal with social issues, which the way that the United States was built is that everything should be taken care of by the state. So if you live in a state that is maybe more liberal leaning or more conservative leaning, then if you're the opposite, then you could just move to another state. And that's really the way it should be, as the federal government should be very limited on what they do, and then everything should be for their sovereign states. So right now I've been seeing too often where people are voting or wanting to vote for certain candidates just because of their gender or their race, or they don't know why. They just want to vote for them because it's not the other person. And that's very concerning, because I want everyone to really look at the seriousness of being the president of the United States. And you need the knowledge. You need to know more about what their abilities are and what they can do, because they're then connected with the rest of the world. How they speak to the rest of the world is their strength for the rest of the world. How do they talk to those people, and how those people see them? I wanted to bring up Hosea, and this is chapter 4. So I want to read parts of it. And actually, I'm going to read pretty much about half of chapter 4. And you tell me if this falls in line with what we see today and how people think. Hear the word of the Lord, people of Israel, for the Lord has a case against the inhabitants of the land. There is no truth, no faithful love. What are you doing? He never comes down here, and then he just follows me down here. Max, stop. Hear the word of the Lord, people of Israel, for the Lord has a case against the inhabitants of the land. There is no truth, no faithful love, and no knowledge of God in the land. Cursing, lying, murder, stealing, and adultery are rampant. One act of bloodshed follows another. For this reason, the land mourns, and everyone who lives in it languishes, along with the wild animals and the birds of the sky. Even the fish of the sea disappear, but let no one dispute, let no one argue, for my case is against the priests. You will stumble by day, the prophet will also stumble with you by night, and I will destroy your mother. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I will reject you from serving as my priest. Since you have forgotten the law of your God, I will also forget your sons. The more they multiplied, the more they sinned against me. I will change their honor into disgrace. They feed on the sin of my people. They have an appetite for their iniquity. The same judgment will happen to both people and priests. I will punish them for their ways and repay them for their deeds. They will eat but not be satisfied. They will be promiscuous but not multiply. For they have abandoned their devotion to the Lord. Promiscuity, wine, and new wine take away one's understanding. So when you look at and you read this, you see that sometimes we have to suffer the consequences of our actions. If we make the wrong decision in November, and if we vote for someone and then the country goes downhill because the person that we voted for didn't have any foreign policy, the person that we voted for didn't really know how business works, because you really have to be a business leader to run the country. If you were doing an interview for a job, which I've done many interviews in the last month, they want to know what you can do. They need to know that you are ready for the job that they want to give you. And if I said and did things where I didn't know what my job was, at least know how the job works, and have certain credentials to walk into it, then I wouldn't get the job. It wouldn't have anything to do with the color of my skin. It wouldn't have anything to do with my gender. It wouldn't have anything to do with how much money that I made previously. It would have everything to do with, am I ready for this job? Do I understand? What are the other references that I have in my previous jobs? So when I go and I give them my resume better be good. So if I was to bring you a resume and my last job failed miserably and I ran it in the ground and it was in debt and all the things that I had with it were against everything that I'm saying now, how would you take that? If I had all this on paper that said exactly opposite of what I was going to do now, would you hire me? I don't think you would. So I really want you to look at the candidates that you have in front of you. One has actually ran the country before. And actually, I had more money in my pocket when he was in office. The country had no wars. Then we have this other person that's already been in office for 3.5 years. And by the time the election hits, it's going to be nearly 4 years. And this person has literally tanked our entire economy. So I want you to don't think about the color of their skin. Don't think about their gender. Think about their business resume. Because that's important. It is super important. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't like this person. I don't like that person. I'm sure you work at a company, if you're an adult, I'm sure you work at a company that probably has a CEO that you probably don't know nothing about them. And if you did, you probably wouldn't want to know anything about them. But you work for them now. You take paychecks from them. And I know that a lot of people want to take into things that maybe President Trump said in the past and take them out of context, or use things that have really nothing to do with the presidency So lower taxes. We don't want more taxes, ladies and gentlemen. I promise you, we are being taxed to death. And if you sit there and say, oh, well, this person, he's a billionaire and he's just looking out for his friends, he's lost money since he's been in the presidency. He's lost. Probably half of his fortune has been lost because of the presidency, because everyone is out to get him. So you're talking about a person that is willing to, would you lose half of your fortune? Would you be willing to lose half of your fortune for something that you loved? Those are the questions that I want to ask anyone, and I don't want to condemn you. But I think we're being led in a direction where it could take us decades to dig out of. Even in a positive note, that we get somebody in there that's a good businessman that can lead us in a good direction. It's still going to take years to get rid of the national debt, but he was working on it. We have to make it so there aren't illegal immigrants coming into the country however they want to, because in the last 3.5 years, things like ISIS is back. Taylor Swift just had a big, huge concert, shut down a whole tour because ISIS was making threats against it. So ISIS was gone, and now ISIS is back. So we've got ISIS and the Taliban, because over the last 3.5 years, they've been giving money to the Taliban per week and feeding those terrorist organizations. You can go look at this. I'm not just making this up. I'm not here to give you any propaganda. But I know what's going on right now is that there's a lot of lying in the media. And I really want you to go out there and do your own research, because don't just believe what mainstream media tells you. I promise you it is not all true. But brothers and sisters, our whole generation depends on this election, because we took 8 years in the Obama administration. We changed so many things. We allowed all of these things on the outside, all these social issues, to cloud our judgment. Now we've got all these delusional people out there. We got men dressing up as women. Jesus would not want this. These are the things that were happening in Sodom and Gomorrah. These are things that are horrible. We got men going in and showing themselves to children. In the state of Washington, it's okay to walk around naked in front of children as long as you don't do anything sexual. Do you want that in your state? Because your state could be next. If you don't live in Washington, maybe you live in New York. Maybe you live in California. Maybe that's next for your state. Is that what you want? Do you want naked old men walking around in front of your children or your grandchildren? I don't think you do. Do you want grown men like me to go through a midlife crisis and put on a wig and then go try to be on your daughter's baseball team or softball team? We might have men trying to show up and try to play in the WNBA. Where is the line going to be drawn when we really need to be in reality? We're letting ourselves go to our own desires. And sometimes in Scripture it says God let them be overcome by their own desires. So I just ask you, let's stay in the present. Let's do what's best for the next generation. We've got to see what reality really is. I'm a man. I will never be a woman. I will never try to be in women's sports. I don't think it's good for a man to go and take over women's sports. And I find it very upsetting that there's so many Christians that are being allies to a delusion that is destroying our country. And it's contagious. It's like communism. Communism has been contagious to countries like Venezuela, Cuba, Colombia, Nicaragua. Those are all contagions. And you get one that has power, and then they get more and more power. And then the next one's like, hey, if they got power, maybe I can be friends with them, and then I can gain power. And then all these delusions, because the Spirit is over the whole world. The devil is running rampant in the whole world. It's a spirit that is completely cloaked the whole world. And then our delusions are starting to be contagions in other countries, and they're looking at us in the news and seeing men dress around with feathers and dance around naked in the streets. And you can go and you can look online and see in California, there are naked old men walking around the streets while kids are riding their bicycles by for school. San Francisco. Most people don't even want to go to San Francisco anymore because they are robbing you in broad daylight. Anywhere where there's in the inner city, it smells like poop because there's so many homeless people on the streets. Kamala Harris is from San Francisco. She could have done something to help San Francisco. She did nothing. She made it worse. And she wants to do the same thing to the rest of the country. I know a lot of people want to pick sides and say, well, we really shouldn't be getting political, and, you're a Christian and this and that. But it's important. This is the reason why Jesus went into the temple and started turning over the tables. That was righteous anger. And I'm not here to condemn anyone, but I want you that are not delusional to think about it's more than gender. It's more than race. You can't elect a president just on those things. You can't choose a president because they're mean. Sometimes, if there's some business people out there that just have to be a certain type of personality. I would not want to do it. I would not want to be the president. But I need to know that I have a strong person that can lead our country. Just like the other presidents that we had in the past, the presidents that started this country, George Washington, Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln. Those were all presidents that were strong men that needed to move in a direction to change the course of the country. So please think about, and I pray that God, if you are watching this right now, I pray that Jesus takes the scales off your eyes in Jesus' name. I pray that all of the strongholds that block you from thinking for yourself, I pray that all the propaganda can no longer be used against you, and no weapon formed against you can prosper. And I pray that all of you that are watching, I pray that you see this, and I pray that you begin to research the things that you need to, and do not make a silly mistake and put us into a horrible state here in this country. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you have anything that you disapprove, or you have a different opinion, I would love to hear it in the comments. And I want to pray, and I hope those out there that are praying people, I hope you're praying for this country. I hope you're praying for people. I hope you're praying for how this country does the voting process. I hope that you're making sure that we're praying for all those people that do the right thing, and that we have a voting process that is fair. And I hope that all of you stay safe. Don't go out there on the internet and call names. I just want you to go out there and do your research and know for yourself that you're doing something. You might not like the person, but you're doing what's right for the country. Lower taxation, smaller government. Those are the things that you want to do. We do not want to be dealing with social issues. Let the states deal with social issues. I hope you enjoyed this. I know that most of my videos are serious, and I'm a serious person. I'm known as a realist. I want to stay in the moment. I want you to understand that I care about our country. I'm an American, and I'm proud of our country. I'm proud of what we've done as a country to get this far, but it's dwindling. And we're in a very, very difficult spot right now. So I hope God blesses you today, and I hope to see you very soon. If you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe if you want to see more. Have a great day.